I didn't see what he was yelling at. I didn't see the ambulance coming, but I remembered him yelling. That was the last thing I heard from him.
On a peaceful Sunday morning in 1997, the Kemp family, Julie, her husband Andy, and their 8-year-old son Landon, were driving home from church in North Carolina. It was a routine drive, a familiar road, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. They were just a family headed home after a spiritual morning, not knowing that within minutes their lives would change forever. Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. You won't want to miss more incredible real-life stories like this one. As they approached an intersection, an ambulance returning to its station sped through a red light. It slammed into the side of their car, right on the driver's side where Andy was sitting. The impact was so forceful that it instantly killed Andy. The car was crushed, mangled beyond recognition. Emergency crews arrived quickly and focused on saving Julie, who had suffered severe injuries. But something, or rather someone, was missing. Rescuers didn't realize at first that there had been a third passenger in the vehicle. Landon had been sitting behind his father on the side of the car that had been hit hardest. The damage was so devastating, they couldn't even see him. It wasn't until someone spotted a small child's shoe in the wreckage that they understood. There was still a boy trapped inside. When they finally reached Landon, he was unresponsive. No pulse, no breathing. His lifeless body was pulled from the back seat, and paramedics immediately began working on him. He was resuscitated at the scene, but his struggle wasn't over. Life Flight rushed him to Carolina's medical center, where he would technically die 2 more times that same day. Each time, doctors managed to bring him back, but the toll was devastating. Doctors were brutally honest with Julie. If her son managed to survive, he likely wouldn't be the same. The trauma he'd suffered was so severe, they believed he might live in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. No talking, no walking, no recognition of the world around him, just the shell of a child. But Julie wasn't ready to give up. Not on her son. As Julie lay in her hospital bed, trying to recover from her own injuries, she was forced to attend her husband's funeral, alone. She was angry, confused, heartbroken. Sitting there, she couldn't help but question everything. Why had this happened? Why hadn't God stepped in? Why didn't he send angels to protect them? Even through her frustration and disbelief, Julie continued to pray, perhaps more desperately than she ever had in her life. All she had left now was her son, and even he was slipping away. She begged God for a miracle, for Landon's life. Landon remained in a coma for over 2 weeks. Machines kept him alive, while doctors searched in vain for any signs of brain activity. Days passed, and still, no response. Julie sat by his side, praying, hoping, watching. Then, on a day that seemed like all the rest, something extraordinary happened. Landon opened his eyes. He was awake, alive, and to everyone's astonishment, completely normal, no brain damage, no memory loss, nothing to indicate he had even suffered a traumatic brain injury. He was still Landon, but something inside him had changed. Julie was relieved beyond words, but now came the hardest moment of all. She needed to tell Landon that his father hadn't survived the crash. He had scars on his face, pain in his eyes, and she didn't want to hurt him more than he'd already suffered. Gently, she asked him if he knew where his dad was. Without hesitation, Landon answered, "Yes, I know where he is. I saw him in heaven." Julie froze. This wasn't something he could have imagined. It wasn't something anyone had told him. Yet he spoke with a calm certainty that left her shaken, and what he said next made her breath catch. Landon described seeing his father standing beside two other people, Olin Palmer, a family friend who had died just a month earlier, and Olin's son Neil, who had passed away years ago in a tragic four-wheeler accident. None of them spoke, but all stood together, united in peace. And that wasn't all. Later, Landon turned to his mother and said something she never expected. "Oh, and Mum, I saw your other two kids." Julie stared at him, stunned. Landon had never been told that she had suffered 2 miscarriages before he was born. She had never spoken of them, never shared that painful part of her life. But Landon described them as if he'd known them his whole life. He said he knew they were his siblings, even though they hadn't spoken either. He simply knew, the way you might know someone by instinct, the way perhaps that only heaven allows. Landon explained that each time he died that day, he experienced something different, but it was during the 3rd time that something truly profound occurred. He said he met Jesus himself. Jesus, Landon recalled, didn't just offer comfort, he gave him a mission. In what Landon described as a preview of a movie, Jesus told him that he had to go back to earth, live as a good Christian, and share what he had seen with others. It wasn't a request, it was a calling. And Landon took it to heart. Today, Landon is an adult. Together with his mother Julie, he helps others who are grieving through a ministry called Grief Share. They speak openly about their tragedy, not to relive the pain, but to offer hope. They know what it feels like to lose everything and to question God's presence. But through their loss, they also found a deeper truth, that God never left them. Julie admits that back in 1997, she didn't understand why God hadn't sent an angel. But now she believes differently. She believes angels were there that day, that they surrounded the wreckage, that they guided the doctor's hands, that they protected Landon's soul in ways she couldn't see at the time. Instead of remaining angry or bitter, Julie chose to share their story. And in doing so, she's helped countless others find hope in their darkest hour. Julie went on to write a book called Faith Has Its Reasons, where she details the many ways their experience brought blessings even in the midst of heartbreak. And the biggest blessing of all, watching her son walk into his divine purpose. Landon never shies away from sharing his story. He speaks boldly about what he saw and why he believes. He doesn't just talk about heaven because it's a nice idea. He talks about it because he's been there. He says he's not doing this for applause or recognition or for some abstract belief. He's doing it for Jesus, because he met him, because he saw him, because Jesus gave him a mission, and he's living it every single day. Through his testimony, Landon reminds us all that heaven isn't just a story. It's a reality, that even in our worst moments, when all seems lost, there is a God who is closer than we think, a Savior who still performs miracles, and a life beyond this one that is more beautiful than we can imagine. So if you're struggling today, if you face loss or heartbreak, remember this: you are not alone. Heaven is real, and so is hope.